Welcome to the Spunky Spirit Podcast. I'm your host, psychic medium Carrie Muggs. This is where we learn all things spirit, everything from spiritual gifts, awakenings, ghosts, aliens, and starseeds. Nothing is untouchable, but always fun and spunky. I am honored to be on this spiritual journey with you, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Spunky Spirit. Today we're going to be talking about mindset because it is so important. And I'm actually reading a book by Carol S. Dweck. I think it's D-W-E-C-H or K. And she talks about a growth mindset and a fixed mindset and how if we believe something, it can be entirely true, and how our outside sources of the things that people tell us, we actually will believe. So mindset can change your whole dynamic. And if you follow any kind of spiritual person or any kind of wealth person or millionaire, they will tell you first thing that mindset is so extremely important. And so it's almost like it's such a huge difference in between the two. If you have a mindset that you're fixed, like in this book that she's talking about kids who are told told when they're little that they weren't that smart, or they kind of judge themselves on their grades, and they judge themselves on things that people tell them. And so they kind of think that they think that they're not smart, or they think that they have to be that person that these other people tell them they have to be. And I remember the saddest story that she said is one of the little boys was like, "You mean I don't have to be stupid anymore?" And I hate to use that word, but it's completely true. If we think that we are in a certain way because that's the way we're taught we are. It's just that belief system. It's that whole belief system. We are taught things that our mind actually believes. And I remember listening to a speaker once, and she said, she was talking about a little boy who had, who read that starfish, if they lost one of their arms or their things, that it would grow back. So he just assumed that if when he actually lost his thumb, and he just thought it would grow back like a starfish, and it did. Like, it kind of grew, like maybe not the whole thumb, but that was because that's what he believed. And so I don't know if that's true or not, but I just thought it was fascinating that that's what we do is we can. It works both ways. We create this mindset, or we create how we're going to handle things and how we react to things. And so we also can create it in a bad way too. So if we create these stories that aren't even true, and this is what creates the fear. And so honestly, our spiritual growth is half of the mindset, like how to have a growth mindset. And I would love to say positive mindset but I don't want to induce or have that, that positive toxic positivity where everything always has to be perfect all the time. And obviously it's not going to be like that. We're going to have ups and downs, and we're going to have these roller coasters, but our mindset is so key to having a good outlook, or having a good, an outcome. We have to have a good mindset. And so a mindset is indecision or a theory, or assumption, methods, or notion held by one or more people. And so it could be a mindset of a group. It could be a mindset of just a couple people. It could be the mindset of you. It could be a mindset of the family, but a growth mindset is where you can take your critique or your criticism or look at something and have a good have a good turn on it. So a fixed mindset is like, let's say something bad happens, or somebody says, okay, you didn't do this great, you didn't do this great, you didn't do this great. And fixed mindsets have a really hard time with criticism. And so they automatically go into their, oh my gosh, I'm horrible. And we have these thoughts that we have these thoughts that I'm not good enough. I sucked at this. I didn't do good. And I'm not ever going to get better. Or we do the blame thing where we're like, well, they just don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand it. We do this whole with a fixed mindset. We do the blame thing, or we do this whole I'm not good enough thing. And that's kind of where a fixed mindset is. We just think it can't get better, or we do the whole woe is me, or they don't know what they're talking about. A growth mindset will hear criticism, and they will be like, okay, so how can I do better at this? How can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I get better at it? And you're going to have to excuse me for a second because I still have this cold and I get things in my throat. So I have to take a drink. Sorry if that sound is disgusting to some people. But a growth mindset is when your reaction is, okay, how can I get better at this? You don't take other people's opinions of you and let it change you or get you down. You actually, sorry, I had to pause for a minute because I had a coughing attack. But you don't take what people say for you or critique for you. You don't let that bother you. You don't let like what other people think of you, because you know that you can use this for your growth. You can grow. You know that you can take what they've said and say, okay, so how can I change this? How can I learn more? How can I become better? What can I do to change? And this book is so fascinating. It's called Mindset. And it's so fascinating to know the different mindsets that people have. And a lot of that really showed for me is that some of your mindset is set by other people. You let the belief system and you let the opinions of other people, we let the opinions of other people seep into our belief system. And so that changes our mindset. We care about what other people think so much. And really, spiritually, on this earth, it's about our journey. It's about us going forward. It's about us and our spiritual team. If you knew the backing of your spiritual team and you knew the camaraderie you had of your spiritual team and how they're behind you, you would not, if you even saw your strength or you could even see an inkling of the power that you actually have, you would not let these other people's opinions or other people's beliefs affect your reactions to things. And so this book is more about the analogical part of it, the scientific part of it. But the reason why it fascinated me is because it has such a spiritual effect to it too. And the outcomes of certain things can so change with your mindset. I just noticed that when my mindset is bad, or I have a bad, when I get up in the morning and I'm like, okay, and I'm kind of negative, that's when all these intrusive thoughts start coming in. All these intrusive thoughts about, am I not good enough? Or what if this happens? Or we start creating these stories that aren't real. And the thing about it is even our own minds, not other people's opinions, but our own minds can create these beliefs that we think is true. Like if we see an article in the paper about how a child gets in an accident, we have these intrusive thoughts about what if our child gets in an accident? What if this happens? What if this happens? We react to that and we create this thing we create these stories that aren't even true. And so the mindset, our mind is like so much of how we live and how we react to things. And we really you have to mind your mind. It takes practice. It's not something that you just can one day be like, okay, if I have these intrusive thoughts, I'm just going to make them go away. Because this is how anxiety comes into play. We get these intrusive thoughts and then they overwhelm us and we start to have anxiety. And this is what it's our belief. It's the mindset that causes these things, because we start to believe these things like, what if this presentation doesn't go okay? What if this does happen to my baby? What if I can't do this? Or what if I can't do that? And we create this thing that causes us anxiety, or causes us to stress about this. And so it's our reaction. And at the end of the day, all we can do is our best and give our best, do our best and give our best. And that's all that is expected from us. That's all that Spirit ever expects from us. And who more to give that to than Spirit, right? To God, to Source, and to ourselves on this journey. So if we can go through this lifetime with a fixed mindset, a not a growth mindset, a fixed mindset, a negative mindset, and it can really hinder our journey. It can really hinder our journey and our experiences, because we're here to have experiences, and how we react to them is so much part of that. And so this doesn't happen overnight. I'm not saying that, tomorrow you can be like, okay, I'm going to be happy all the time. I'm going to do this all the time. I'm going to have this, because that is not true. You cannot, you have to go through your emotions. We're also here to experience emotions, but you can have a different mindset of how you're going to handle or react to these emotions, which is key to having a growth mindset. So not as much as a positive mindset, but a growth mindset. You're going to have these setbacks. You're going to have these aha moments. You're going to have these moments where you just don't know if you can push through. And you got to ask yourself, okay, how can I do this? How can I have a positive outlook for this? How can I go through this in a growth way, in a growth learning way? What can I learn from this? And it takes practice. It takes lots of practice. It takes lots of it's a probably working on it probably 24/7. Like, it's probably because it affects everything. It can affect your financial situation. That's why I did I did a financial podcast a while ago, and it can affect, the growth of your business. It can affect the growth of relationships. If you have a mindset that you're not good enough in a relationship, or that your partner's always bad, or it's always a terrible thing, then that's how it's going to kind of be. So, and this isn't really, it is kind of a little bit about like manifestation a little bit too. I just don't really I don't want you to get it confused with toxic positivity, because toxic positivity is just pretending that nothing ever bad happens, and that you have to be happy all the time, and you don't deal with your emotions. Growth mindset that's why I'm saying growth mindset instead of positive mindset, because growth mindset lets you feel those emotions, lets you go through that reaction, but with a growth mindset involved. You're not fixed in the same place. You're not blaming. You're not saying you're not good enough. You're growing and saying, okay, how can I make this better? Or how can I bring the best light into this? And you can have your down moments, and you can have 2 hours of eating ice cream and crying your eyes out, but then you get back up on your feet and you feel like, okay, how can I grow from this? And so, and it's such an amazing different kind of aspect than just trying to be positive all the time. It's trying to learn and grow all the time. And this is what Spirit wants us to do on this journey, is to learn and grow learn about ourselves, and have a positive and growth mindset about ourselves, because we really do let things get in about what other people think, or our reactions to other people. And we just have to know that we are here for our own journey, for our own reason, and it's not selfish. And so we really need to take into this consideration this growth mindset. So some of the things that you can do for a growth mindset this is why meditation is so important, because meditation is huge, because it helps you figure out what's going on in your mind and how you can fix it, or how you can work on it, or how you can or what's yours and what's not yours, and you can get rid of those. You can kind of get rid of those intrusive thoughts and figure. And that's why meditation is so important. Meditation isn't for having these surreal, phenomenal spiritual experiences. It's cool when that happens, and it can happen. But meditation is also for you to figure out how to get rid of these intrusive thoughts, how to make it so these intrusive thoughts don't cloud your judgment, don't cloud and get in the way. So that's why meditation is so good. And breathing, breath work, so good with mindset, like so good with relaxing and figure out who you are and all of that kind of stuff too. So that really helps with your mindset. And also too, not just meditation and not just breath work, but if you don't know what tapping is, I would look into that. I always tap my chest. I've talked about tapping before. Counseling can help with mindsets, but honestly, at the end of the day, it is us minding our mind. It's us looking at our intrusive thoughts, us looking at what our mind is thinking, what we're creating, and trying to reverse that or trying to change that. So a growth mindset kind of means that you thrive on a challenge. You don't see failure as a way to describe yourself, but it's like a catapult for growth. It's like you get to develop even more. So when you instead of having thoughts like, what if this happens, or I'm not good enough, or I'm like this, you look at it and say, how can I become better? How can I do this instead? So the ways that you can develop a growth mindset is you need to listen to the voice inside of you. Now, I have named the negative voice. I've named her Emma. And it has ties back to some religious things. And so I've named her Emma. So anytime I have these negative thoughts, I always name her and call her out and say, Emma, you need to stop doing this, because it's kind of nice to think of it as another person, right? Like as somebody else. And so you can kind of control the situation, and you need to listen to those. And in all of that stuff is, what if I fell? And then you need to say, Emma, you need to shut up. And then you need to have other thoughts that say, well, what if I don't? What if this is awesome? I can do this. I can move forward. I've got this. I don't even know what fear is. So, and just recognize that you have that choice. You can sit and wallow in the sadness, or you can sit and wallow in that thought or that intrusive thought, or you can distract yourself. If you can't change the thought, then distract. Watch a TV show. Do something else. Distract yourself so that intrusive thought doesn't distract yourself, or talk back to it. Talk back to it and say, no, this is how it's going to be. This is how. It's just crazy, because it's like weeding a garden. If you had a garden and it was beautiful and all these beautiful flowers and all this beautiful fruit came up, and you didn't tend the garden, you would have all these weeds overtaking the garden, and it would just get worse and worse and worse. And then all these weeds would take over the garden, and you wouldn't have any more beautiful flowers or the fruit. So you got to think about that with your mind. If you let these weeds pop up and these intrusive thoughts pop up, and you don't mind them, and you don't trim them, or you don't pull them or talk back to them, they're going to take over. So you've got to change that mindset, and you've got to pick those or talk back to them and say, you know what? I don't receive that. I love Elise. I don't remember her last name, but she says this awesome thing. She's kind of an influencer on Instagram, and she has these cool sweatshirts, and she says it changed for her when she would have an intrusive thought, or if somebody would say something to her like, you're ugly, she would say mentally, I don't receive that. And it would help her stop that, help her stop with that intrusive thought. She would just automatically picture her, she would say out loud, I don't receive that. Now, energetically, that's going to push that away. Energetically, that's going to make it so it bounces back off of her. So, and then when she had something nice said about her, or she thought something about herself, she would say, I receive that. I do receive that. Energetically, you're going to visualize yourself receiving that. And so that, just saying that out loud and speaking that word, you guys, words have so much power. Why do you think witchcraft, they're called spells? Words have so much power. So when you say out loud, I receive that, or I don't receive that, energetically and visually, it works that way. And so that kind of helps with your mindset too. So talk back, and also practice. Practice this all the time. It's not just something that you do tomorrow or the next day for 2 hours. It's something you practice constantly, because weeds are coming up constantly. And so in this garden, in this garden mind of yours. So it's something constantly that you'll be practicing. So just know that. Now, if it gets to be too much, and if it gets to be so you can't kind of control it on your own, and meditation doesn't work, and energetically or talking to, this other self, or then find outside help. I talk about counseling all the time on my podcasts, because, spirituality and mental health are so connected and so combined that if you have trouble doing this on your own, seek help. There's nothing wrong with that. So, and the last, a lot of this, stop seeking approval of others. This is really hard for me to say this out loud to you, because I am such a culprit of this. People pleasing. Grew up with an alcoholic father, and so people pleasing is one of my biggest things. I'm getting better, and I'm creating boundaries, and I'm being super strong. But it is really hard for me to tell you, stop seeking approval of others when I'm not 100% on this either. So practice that. So boundaries, seeking approval, who cares what other people think? All that matters at the end of the day is what you think about yourself, because this is your journey. These are your experiences. It doesn't even matter what your family thinks of you. And I know that that's hard, but it doesn't. They are not your judge. They're not your jury. You are. So, and also too, because words have so much importance to them, replace the word failing with learning. So instead of saying, what if I fail? Say, what if I learn? That would be awesome. That would be awesome if I learned. And kind of, this is really hard too, because you got to let that fear go. And that's the hardest thing, because fear really is just a story you're telling yourself about something that hasn't even happened yet. I can't even tell you how many times that I have thought, well, if I do this, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. And in reality, none of that even happens. I actually do it and none of it happens. Just kind of like this retreat that I'm planning. What if I do this retreat and then this and this and this happens? Like all the negative things. You know what? At the end of the day, I bet you I'm going to have this retreat. I'm just going to do it, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome. The agenda is crazy awesome. The curriculum is good, and it's going to be the most awesome thing ever. And that's the mindset I got to have to put out there, right? And you know what? If problems occur, then I'll deal with that when it happens. But why create that now? Why create the worry and the stress about it now, right? So that's just kind of, it's just kind of how it is. And so I'm going to kind of, a fixed mindset is just your belief that you can't change your talents. You can't change your traits. You can't change your abilities. You just are the way you are. You just are the way you are. And that's just, your personality stays that same. You can't really change. That's just how it is. That's the fixed. You think that your intelligence and your creativity and all of that thing is just, that's how you're born, and that's how it is. And no kind of amount of effort or work will help with that. And that's not true. That is so not true. That's just something that somebody has told you, or that you're telling yourself, and it's not true. And so a growth mindset is when you know that you're going to learn, and you can always improve. You can always change, and you can always be better, and it can always benefit. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in this podcast, is just how important mindset is. It can change your whole day. And if it can change your whole day, that means it can change your whole week, which it can mean it can change your whole month and your whole year and your whole life. So really practice on mindset. And I know I've really been working with my spiritual team, because I've noticed that sometimes I try to stay pretty positive, but it's mostly been toxic positivity. I've been like, I'm just going to be happy no matter what. I'm just going to be happy no matter what. And if there is some good to that, but there's also things that I did not process in this journey because I was always like, I'm just going to be happy. I'm just going to make it happy. I'm just going to be happy about it. And so now it's catching up to me and I'm starting to have to process it. And so I can see sometimes that my mindset isn't the best and the greatest. And I don't want that. I don't want that for my life. I don't want my kids to see that. I don't want my business to see that. And so I've really been researching and Spirit's really been leading me to mindset and my mindset. And it was just amazing because even just this morning, with one of my clients, we talked about that. And because I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, my podcast on, and I'm reading this book called Mindset. And I'm like, this is what Spirit wants me to talk about. And because it is so important. So just figure out what, think of your mind as a garden and be really be really careful about what you allow to grow there. And don't let don't let the weeds take over, and just know that you are worth it. And if you knew the amount of power and the amount of gifts you had, you would not even question it. And so just do it. And I don't even know how to explain the amount of energy that I'm feeling, even though I still don't feel very well. This is like the second week that my voice and I'm still coughing, but mindset is super important in this journey that we're on earth, because we can let lower frequencies get to us, and we can let negativity get to us. And again, we do need to process those things, but with a good mindset, like with, okay, what am I going to learn from this? How is this going to, this is going to help me. This is going to help me grow and learn, and it's going to be a good thing. So I hope that helps you guys. That was, super important on my mind lately. And I just think that Spirit just wanted me to put it out there. So there must be somebody out there that needs to hear it. So watch your mindset. Do you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? And honestly, really, the book Mindset by Carol S. Dweck is so good. I think it's DWECK. And you can see the difference. I didn't know there was a difference. And you can see the difference in the toxic positivity compared to a growth mindset. So it's just so good, and it will help you change your mindset. It'll help you weed your garden, and it'll help you receive and not receive certain things that people say about you. And I just can't, and it's like sage. Mindset isn't a one and done kind of thing. You sage your house once, it's, lower frequencies aren't going to be gone forever. Mindset is something you work on continually throughout this whole journey. Same with sage. You have to sage your house and get rid of those lower frequencies out of your space every once a month. And so same with your brain. You got to get rid of those lower frequencies at least every day. You've got to be practicing this continually. So I love you guys. Hope that helps so much. You will be hearing more about my retreat at the beginning of June. I have everything in motion. It's going to launch June 1st. I have the place. I have all the things. So be watching for that. I'm going to send my Patreon people their information first, and then I will send the emails out, and then I will post it on social media. So I love you guys so much. I am off next week. I don't know if there will be a podcast or not. We're just gonna go as we grow as we go, right? So I love you guys so much, and I will see you next week or the week after that. If you liked this podcast, please subscribe and share it with others on social media.